Holland, a captivating film from 2025, opens by immersing us in the seemingly idyllic Dutch-American town of Holland, Michigan. We meet Nancy, a woman who despite a troubled past has found a sense of peace and belonging with her optometrist husband Fred and their son Harry. The initial scenes paint a picture of small-town charm complete with references to local radio gardening tips and the eagerly anticipated Tulip Time Festival. However, this facade of suburban bliss quickly begins to unravel. What starts as a seemingly minor domestic dispute over stolen bacon soon exposes deeper currents of suspicion and unease within Nancy's seemingly perfect life. As her questions about Fred's fidelity and his mysterious absences grow, Nancy's quest for truth propels her into a dangerous investigation that threatens to shatter the carefully constructed reality she holds so dear. The movie opens with the familiar voices of local radio hosts Jan Musson and another unnamed co-host on The Gardening Hour on WHTZ discussing spring cleanup, tulips, and the impending tulip time traffic in Holland, Michigan. The idyllic setting is established as a woman. Nancy describes Holland as the best place on earth where she feels safe and happy after a troubled past. She credits her husband Fred and their son Harry with bringing stability to her life. The seemingly perfect facade quickly cracks. Nancy confronts Candy, their babysitter, about stolen bacon, which Candy tries to excuse as a food addiction. However, Nancy isn't talking about the bacon, she's accusing Candy of something far more serious, hinting at a deeper betrayal without explicitly stating it. She dismisses Candy for a few days, urging her to return when she's ready to tell the truth. Harry, overhearing the confrontation, is furious with his mother, calling the situation fucking bullshit and accusing Nancy of ruining their lives over one tiny stupid thing. Fred, Nancy's husband, tries to calm Harry, advising him to take a deep breath and suggesting that things seem huge one day and then a couple days later it's like it never happened. He subtly encourages Harry to keep the peace with his mother. Later over dinner, Nancy confides in Fred about the big drama with Candy mentioning theft. Fred dismisses her concerns, attributing it to some bacon and suggesting Nancy is overly worked up. Nancy reveals her true distress, stating it's not just about the bacon. It's theft, and then pointedly asks Fred if he has checked his junk drawer or closet floor, implying something else is missing or hidden. Fred, visibly uncomfortable, tries to change the subject, praising Nancy's cooking. He then announces he has to go to Frankenmuth for an Alcon junket for a new contact lens, only for one night. The next morning, Nancy discusses the situation with her friend Jan, who is also a teacher at Holland High. Nancy expresses frustration that Fred isn't taking her seriously and suspects him of playing detective. She reveals that she believes Candy only stole one earring, which Jan finds puzzling, asking why she wouldn't take both. During their conversation, they see Squiggs Grumman, a former bus driver, fired for allegedly smelling of booze. Jan mentions that Squiggs' son is a good kid in her shop class. The conversation then shifts to Fred's frequent absences for conferences. Nancy has an upcoming appointment with Fred, her optometrist husband, and Jan suggests she'd look cute in glasses. Harry interrupts, asking for a sleepover at a friend's house. Nancy, who had planned a special evening for them since Fred is away, reluctantly agrees, leading to another argument with Harry about her taking away Candy and now his friends. Nancy is later shown listening to a true crime podcast called Ipso Facto, stories that could have been ripped from current headlines focusing on serial murderers. She's visibly shaken by something she sees or hears, exclaiming, "Oh my god." She calls Fred's hotel room, but he doesn't answer. Returning home, she discovers a hotel parking ticket in Fred's jacket pocket from Madison, a place he never mentioned visiting for his conference. She confronts him, but Fred dismisses it, claiming he was in the shower when she called, and presenting her with Frankenmuth extra livers and a small toy as proof of his attendance. Nancy then confides in Jan, now convinced Fred is having an affair. She points out that Fred told her the conference was in Fort Wayne, not Madison, and that she found a Polaroid film roll in his pocket despite them not owning a Polaroid camera. She suspects he's using it for kinky sex photos with his lover. Nancy also expresses suspicion about the frequency of Fred's conferences for an optometrist. Jan, trying to be supportive, suggests Fred might have a bunch of different lovers, which Nancy finds impressive. Nancy reflects on her past, admitting she wasn't in a good place when she met Fred and that he rescued her from feeling trapped, going nowhere. She says the box, presumably a metaphorical safe space Fred provided, was good for me and held me together. Fred announces another Alcon conference, this time a 3-day advanced training in Greenville. Nancy is clearly agitated, feeling abandoned. Fred tries to reassure her, suggesting he can tell Alcon no more two-parters if his absences are causing a strain on her. Nancy, defensive, turns the accusation back on him, asking, "So now the problem is me?" Fred attempts to smooth things over, suggesting they press the reset button. Later, an incident occurs where Nancy is shown hitting Harry, leading Harry to run away. Nancy desperately calls for help, indicating a deeper domestic issue. Jan asks Nancy if she thinks Fred is hitting his kid, and Nancy admits it's the first time she's ever called child services. Jan supports her decision, reiterating to follow the clues. Nancy then discovers a flyer or piece of paper with the same address for Fred's office and her own. She proposes they break into Fred's office, a suggestion Jan initially dismisses as crazy. Nancy is convinced that Fred has hidden the Polaroids there because he knows she wouldn't look. She outlines a plan. Jan, posing as a patient, will go for an eye exam and discreetly rig a window in the bathroom so it appears locked, but isn't allowing Nancy to later enter. Jan is hesitant, fearing they'll get caught, but Nancy assures her they won't. Jan goes to Fred's office for her eye exam, where Fred recognizes her name from Holland High School, where his wife Nancy works in life management. Jan, trying to maintain her cover, claims to be new to the area and not know many people. Fred finds her vision nearly perfect. Jan asks to use the bathroom, where she attempts to disable the window lock. While she's in the bathroom, another patient, Mr. Delgado, tries to use it and nearly catches her. Jan rushes out, bumping into Fred, who is confused by her behavior. She leaves her jacket in the bathroom and a police officer who was also at the office warns her not to drive with dilated eyes. Later Nancy and Dave stake out Fred's office. As they watch, Fred is seen arguing with Squiggs Grauman, the former bus driver. Squiggs, appearing intoxicated, shouts racial slurs at Dave and his son Sean. Sean in turn curses back at Squiggs, escalating the confrontation. Dave intervenes but Squiggs's racist taunts provoke him further, leading to a physical altercation. Dave manages to overpower Squiggs while Nancy is both horrified and strangely aroused by Dave's actions, finding him so manly. After the incident, Nancy tries to initiate intimacy with Dave but he pulls away, reminding her that she's married and has the evidence, the Polaroids, she sought. He states he wants to be with her but not like this and that he can't abandon his child. Nancy, however, insists that his reluctance isn't for Harry but for his own comfortable life, his house, car, church standing, and the excitement on the side with her, a brown boy he can play with. She challenges him to commit or let her go. Dave apologizes and they agree to interact only at school. The next morning Fred returns home. Nancy, feigning sleep, asks about his trip. Fred mentions buying Harry truffles but Gwen, another character mentioned earlier, ate them. Later Nancy discovers 2 ATM cash advances and a $300 charge at Jansen's jeweler Grand Rapids on their bank statement. She calls the jeweler asking if Fred purchased jewelry for his mistress but the call is inconclusive. Nancy, finding an old broken bracelet of hers, realizes Fred must have bought it at Jansen's. Fred confronts Nancy, presenting her with her repaired bracelet, claiming he found it in his office. He reiterates his desire for her to feel safe and secure in their home and family. He suggests they learn to let things go as they did early in their marriage and rebuild trust. He offers to get things back to the way they were if she's willing. Nancy, seemingly remorseful, agrees, promising to be the wife you deserve and to have an attitude of gratitude. At a public event, Nancy and Fred mingle with friends, including a couple named Jill and Jim. Jim mentions seeing Fred earlier despite Fred claiming to still be away on his trip. This subtle inconsistency reignites Nancy's suspicions. Nancy later meets Dave, apologizing and reaffirming her intention to leave Fred. She describes her current life as carbon monoxide suffocating her slowly. Dave, however, expresses concern about the potential consequences of her leaving, especially losing Harry, given Fred's standing in the community. He suggests an alternative: Nancy should follow Fred to Greenville on his next trip and gather undeniable photographic evidence of his infidelity. Dave insists on accompanying her. They follow Fred to Greenville. While Dave distracts Fred at a bar, Nancy attempts to get into Fred's hotel room. Dave engages Fred in conversation where Fred reveals his disillusionment with his optometry career and his past desire to blow up my old life and go to Europe with Nancy, but that she valued his stability. Nancy enters Fred's hotel room, finding handcuffs, women's underwear, and pepperonis, suggesting a fetish. Nancy and Dave wake up together, having presumably spent the night. Nancy realizes she's late to pick up Harry. Dave urges her to get real proof as the current photos are insufficient for a clean break. He emphasizes the need for undeniable photographic evidence for their relationship to be clean. Nancy agrees to obtain it. Nancy calls a number associated with Lacey Hartnett, who she deduces is Bologna Queen from the note. A woman tells Nancy that Lacey disappeared almost 3 years ago and was murdered. This revelation horrifies Nancy. Later, Nancy, following a lead, finds herself at a house where she discovers Fred's secret basement full of cages with dogs, implying a disturbing connection to the pepperonis and a darker side to his activities. Fred appears, catching Nancy. He confesses to having killed someone in self-defense, claiming the victim tried to kill him. He implies he fixed the situation and that Nancy is safe because he's not coming back. Nancy, realizing the full extent of Fred's monstrousness, tries to call the police, but Dave intervenes, preventing her, warning her that involving the authorities would ruin Harry's life and their own. Nancy, Dave, and Harry are in the car. Fred is also present, acting as if nothing is amiss, insisting that they press the reset button and make it like nothing ever happened. He attempts to portray himself as the loving husband and father. However, during the drive, Nancy notices Harry is not buckled in. She begs Fred to stop the car, but he refuses. Nancy shouts at Harry to run. A confrontation ensues between Nancy and Fred. Fred, displaying a terrifying shift in demeanor, reminds Nancy of his love and how he kept her safe from her troubled past. He threatens that without him, Harry would become an orphan and likely be molested in some foster home. He implies he deserves her. Harry, witnessing the terrifying scene, screams at his father to stop hurting his mother. The final scene shows Nancy and Dave reflecting on their perceptions of Holland and their past. Nancy admits she wanted to believe Holland was the best place on earth and that Fred rescued her, while Dave says Nancy opened my eyes and really saw me. They both express how they felt safe and happy together, and Nancy concludes by questioning, was it even real? The movie ends with the unsettling implication that Nancy and Dave's relationship, built on the pursuit of truth about Fred, has irrevocably altered their lives, leaving them to grapple with the disturbing reality they uncovered. If you enjoy watching this video, then subscribe to Angel Recaps for the latest movies explanation.